Welcome, everyone, to another Thursday talking about Peruvian nature mysticism. This is all about the Qatari tradition of cross-cultural mysticism or shamanism, and we're going to talk about Waskar Inka today. But before we get into today's topic, we'll just kind of talk a little bit about the tradition in general, or if you have questions from previous streams, let us know. And we have to update our little Twitch descriptions and things, so we'll do that. But welcome, everyone.
I was going to say a little bit of a talk to give time for people to pop in, get their alerts, know that we're on. I think there's a little bit of a lag sometimes. So I've heard suggestions like, can you just kind of ramble talk before the real talk starts? Because by the time I come in, you're already in conversation. And I'm like, what did I miss? So a little bit of good mornings and hellos. And this is the Nature Mysticism Talk filler. That we're doing.
Talk filler. Yeah. Yes. And maybe we talk about it a little bit in all the streams, but the significance to today's topic is all coming into shadow season. Like Waskar Inka is a little bit about the underworld. We'll talk more about him in a little bit. But as we're falling in from the equinox leading into Halloween, a lot of our talks might focus around shadow work because we're approaching the time of year where that becomes really relevant. So that's something I'll throw out as a little filler at the beginning here.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Hey. And good morning, Debbie.
Yes, hello. Just giving a little bit of time for our friends to start joining us because, alerts can lag a little bit. But hello, everybody.
And while I'm thinking about it, I may not be on next week. It will depend when we head down for a camping trip. So we may or may not be on next week. We may have something pre-recorded, or maybe Zane will come on. I haven't reached out to him, but if Zane can hop on, and maybe it will be Melissa and Zane next week, or we might just skip a week. But we will let you know as soon as we determine what's going to be happening. For those of you who are new, Zane is our teacher. He is the author of a book called Inka Mountain Magic and founder of the Wild Hearts Medicine Society, which is all about preserving as close as possible the original teachings. I mean, granted, it's a living tradition. It adapts for the times, and Zane has adapted it, but a lot of what he teaches is as close to the original as you can get without adding the influence of like the Northern traditions, like from North America or other things. So it's pretty cool. It resonates a lot with me to teach it and receive it in that way. Good morning.
Yeah, maybe right now what I should do, pull up Messenger. Dear Zane, you want to come talk next week? Find him.
Maybe. And then if I can be on, then it will just be all three of us on, which would be great too.
Yeah. It's funny. I type as I talk. I'm like, hey, Zane, want to join the live next one?
Yeah.
There we go. See what he says.
And the tradition itself, it's called the Qatari tradition. Qatari means like serpent. And this whole tradition is about developing your unique voice in this world, your unique medicine gifts, with the idea being that your uniqueness and your individuality is the greatest medicine you have to share with your fellow travelers. And about refining the shadow, refining your nectar to offer. And that's really the tradition in a nutshell. It's a personal development, personal empowerment. You don't have to go through it to become a healer. It really is a personal development program that really, no matter what profession you're in, store owner, healer, financial advisor we've had in the past, doesn't matter. It all is applicable to just make you a better you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we've got most of our friends. So if we want to get into our topic, we should be safe. Should be, and we can always, circle back. But we had decided today that we would talk about Waskar Inka. He was an Inka, which is a type of ruler. And I always thought it was interesting that the Incas were chosen because they were the one who could actually glow or illuminate. And a fun little science fact, humans are bioluminescent. We just can't see it with our eyes. Our eyes are too weak unless you can make it, which the Incas could, be bright enough to see in dark rooms. So we actually glow in the dark. We just can't see it. but unless you're able to produce this. So it's this fun little fact about being
Yep.
chosen as Inca.
And they actually have certain chambers and things that you, if you were in line to possibly be an Inca or something of that nature, you would start in a dark room with a candle, and there was like a whole progression of exercises that you would do in order to learn how to produce that bioluminescence. And that kind of carries over to uh, like the fifth level. No, it's like seventh level, right? Somebody who can produce, because there's somebody who can glow, but then there's also somebody who can glow that no matter what somebody else's spiritual or psychic ability is, that glow can be perceived by everyone else, not just certain people. So
Hmm.
that's a little bit of a gradient of glowing ability, if you will.
Yeah. So who and what was Waskar?
Are you asking me, or is that
I am.
rhetorical?
No, I am asking you to get the conversation going.
Okay, so we're not looking to give a whole history lesson here, but back in philosophy or Inca, what's the word I'm looking for? They knew that the empire would eventually split and fail, and they saw people coming with sticks of fire, and I think it was Pachacuti Inca at first that made some sort of. So I'm getting mixed up with my stories. Let's scratch that. Here's the thing: there's Waskar Inka and Apawata. There were two brothers, and they split the empire, and the empire was being ruled independently. Then you have what's his name, Pizarro come, and he sees how much gold is in the empire and everything, and he starts rumors that Waskar Inka is plotting to take over Apawata and like rule all of the Incan Empire again instead of like splitting it up. So he starts these rumors, goes back to Spain, and when he hears that a civil war has started, he comes back, and basically that civil war enables the entire population, the Inca Empire, to be conquered. And Waskar eventually was killed, and it's said then that he went to the underworld, the Uhupacha, and he rules there. And his main task as now the Inca resident Inca, I suppose, of the underworld, is to teach the beings that live there to learn an Aini. And Aini means divine reciprocity. Uh, like, so an example of that would be us and trees. We give them carbon dioxide, they give us oxygen. There's a natural reciprocity between the two. And so he is a, a focal point of our gateway to work with the underworld, to work with these beings, to be an Aini with them, as well as a lot of other things of the underworld and Pachamama, like souls and soul pieces and things of that nature, which we can get into in a moment. But that is Waskar Inka in a nutshell, on a very top level, without diving into all the myths and lores and stuff like that.
Mm. And we have like particular parts of certain weekends where we are purposefully working with Waskar and making that connection. Um, and it's kind of, I think there were a few students in the very beginning, at least, and I think it was the second year, who were a little bit like, ooh, the underworld. I didn't sign up to go work with, ooh, the underworld. And it's like it's not as scary as you think it is, right? Because technically, if you think about it, we would be considered the underworld to beings above us that we think are great and, wonderful angels, guides, ancestors, right? We're the underworld to them because we are below them in consciousness or vibration, however you want to think of it. So in a way, and I think Zane even presented this as like, we are teachers to those underworld beings.
Mm-hmm.
We are teaching them to live in Aini as well. So, our job is not only to ascend ourselves and make ourselves better, but we're also teaching those, and I never liked it being like, oh, we're above them, they're below, but it's just an order of where they're at in their spiritual learning. So they are learning
Mm-hmm.
from us. So it's not like this deep and dark, like you're going to the underworld and you're working with evil things. Like, no,
No.
that's not what we're doing here.
No, and I like Elizabeth Jenkins. Like, that was one of Zane's sister on the path, that she would say angel poop is Sami for us.
Yeah.
Angel hoocha, angel heaviness is Sami for us, just like our hoocha is Sami for the underworld. And that is one of the things that when you are like the very first weekend of the apprenticeship program, one of the final things we do that first weekend is we go to a body of water and you offer your heaviness to the water, because water goes to the deepest depths of Pachamama. It's a way to really go deep into the layers of the earth. And when you offer that hucha, well, to those beings, they see that as this beautiful light. And it entices Waskar Inka to come up. And there's a whole process of the Musak Karpay that occurs with Waskar Inka, which is a very special type of initiation. And you just get a glimpse of who you're becoming, just to get a glimpse of who you're becoming in the future. Because the idea is, with that glimpse, it gives you the inertia to go into a direction, but then you let go of that vision. Because it's not about hanging on to that vision. It's about just giving you the direction of where you're going, and then being in the moment to navigate, because maybe tomorrow the vision will be slightly different. And if you're caught up in what you saw, you'll miss it. So it's like you get that as the initial inertia to push yourself off into a direction, and then stay in the moment for the process of your evolution.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think there's something to be said, right? Just how many people love going to waters, lakes, and just the relaxation and that bonding with the water. Like, in a way, you're kind of doing that without even realizing it, that you're giving that joy and that relaxation in back to the water. And so you're automatically helping, and you're not even realizing that you were doing it. It's just a human nature thing that happens. Right. When you become aware of it and you start overthinking it is when you start mucking it up and making it harder for yourself and, you know, the energy beings around you. So sometimes some things are just innate and easier without trying to throw too much logic in.
Yeah. And that's the thing. They say that humans are the only being that makes hucha, like animals don't make hucha and things. And that hucha is required for this reciprocity and this learning to occur. And so, like, it's really a healthy thing, whether you go into nature and hug a tree and offer it your heaviness, or you go to the beach, even if you don't put your feet in the water, just make a cognizant effort of whatever's heavy on your heart and soul. Just offer it. You don't have to do anything else. Like, just get in the practice of letting go of that, and looking at your hucha is like, you know, just the pressure that was taken to make the pearl of wisdom and the medicine from the experiences that you've had. But then you can let go of the heaviness. You don't need the pressure once you have the pearl, right? Mm-hmm. And so that would be a really good way to think of it when you're in nature. Connect with the earth, connect with anything, and just let go of the pressure, the trauma, and the drama, and just keep the medicine.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that was the one thing, right? So then there were some people who are like, well, isn't that a bad thing you're releasing? And it's like, no, that's still light for them, just like angel heaviness is light for us. So how many times have you been, you know, yay, overjoyed, woo, angel energy, like you just sucked in angel poop, haha. So, you know, think of it that way. You know, what's light for you is going to be light for them. So you can do it by like love of gardening and taking care of the garden. Some people really like enjoy going around picking up litter and the joy that it brings, and then making that area. So that's another simple way. Like, it doesn't necessarily always have to be like go sit and meditate and bond with that tree or bond with that, you know, bit of water. There's other ways, because as you're walking and putting that off and in doing that work, like you're just kind of automatically doing it. You don't have to overthink it. It is very therapeutic. And it's fun when science can back that, right? Like that whole sea salt thing and the ions and the negative ions, and how that actually can like help with depression and stuff. So, and the whole grounding, walking barefoot outside, especially around rain or right before it rains. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it. Sometimes those doing the nature work are already ahead of the science. So, like, you know, I love it when science can catch up to the woo-woo and like explain it away.
Well, and it is a cycle. Like it used to be, you would go to the herb guy and you would like, and this is a true story from me and Anya's experience with kids. It's a well-known thing in Germany and like in Appalachia, like the Mountain Magic and all that, that you could use fennel for stomach issues, allegedly. Since I'm not a medical doctor, we'll throw that in there. But in Germany, even their medical community recognizes that. It's like a thing. So like you would go to the herb person, but then all that stuff becomes, that's an old wives' tale. That's not really real. And now it's modern medicine. And now we're seeing it come back in that no, there really was value to that, and science is catching up. So like we have now gone full circle. But our pediatrician had told us, oh, that's an old wives' tale. Yet in Germany, it was recognized in the medical community and even had a thing on the boxes in Germany that it was good for that. But our medical community won't recognize it. But it's a really good testament that all these things that were known that fell out of favor because of penicillin and it got easier to deal with things and going to herbs, it's all still relevant. And we can go back a little bit to our roots and incorporate the best of both, because there's definitely a need for modern medicine. But we have this whole complementary thing that we kind of have lost our pulse with. And getting back to nature and things like that is where we're going to really get back into balance and harmony with that part of us too.
Mm-hmm. So, one of the weekends, I'm trying to remember which number, like it matters because it changes every year.
Probably the third.
Yeah, I think it was. I was like, it was more beginning than later. Where we had went up to a body of water, not Lake Erie. It was a little pond on, of all things, a church site. And I remember standing back thinking I was one of the last ones to go because, of course, it was in the middle of like bright sun and I avoid the sun. And hoping that like at least some shade would come over by the time I would go out there instead of laying in the sun. And so I got to watch Zane do this process repeatedly. And every time he would be doing the work with a different person, these little fish would come up and, mouth at the opening of the water, and you would see them like pucker. And then in between people where he would be answering questions or, waiting for the next person, talking with them, like that pond would be still. But the minute he would start doing that work, those little fish would come up. And I'm just like, I'll be damned. This is hilarious. And this is fun to watch, this happen at the same time. The first once or twice, I'm like, coincidence. By like the fifth or sixth students, I'm like, not so much the coincidence here. And I almost thought about pulling out the phone to record, but this was the time where Zane was like, you record nothing, this is all by memory, and, keep it all up here. And I'm like, do I disobey the teacher? Do I do it anyway? Because here's proof. And I'm like, I'm going to stay in this, the sanctity of it and the energy of it, and just let it be. I did mention it to him, and he just smiled and went, uh-huh. And like, surprised about it at all. So there were multiple times, and I think maybe that was one of the first ones, the first apprenticeship.
It wasn't related to Waskar Inka, but my first omen, as Zane sometimes after that, if something like that happens, to be like, this is an omen, right? And we were, that very first apprenticeship year, we were going out to Put-in-Bay to the winery, and it was like in the middle of the snowstorm, and the ferry boat wasn't even going for a part of it. We didn't know if we were going to be able to make it to the island, but we did. And we get there and we're doing a despacho to the sun. Remember this? And we were using pine needles instead of coca leaves or instead of bay leaves at the time, because that's what you had. And part of this program is you learn to use what you have. It doesn't have to be the traditional things. And as he's done and he's holding this despacho up, I kid you not, part of this just solid clouds through this whole thing with snow coming down, there comes a beam of sunlight illuminating the despacho. And he's like, this is an omen, and at least maybe I just hear that in my head because I heard him say it once, so all those things. But like it was like a beautiful moment, and shows you that as you're working with these things, like the synchronicities and the God instances that occur to like just validate the work that you're doing, or hawks flying overhead during a wind despacho, or a deer manifesting on the middle of a plateau where there's no possible where this place a deer could come during one despacho, when you're all of a sudden there's this deer that's just out of the middle of nowhere that was like right where we did the despacho, and then poof, here's a deer. And it was just all these different amazing things that just validate the work you're doing.
Yeah, I think I've already told my like aha Zane moment of like, this is the real deal. And it was something kind of similar, but it was one of the first times of working with Inti up on these ledges. And so he's like, close your eyes. And I'm like, but we'll fall. And cloudy, rainy, misty. And of course he starts doing the thing. And then here comes the parting and the sun coming down. I'm like, this man is the shit. Where I'm in. And at one point in one of the memories on Facebook, there was the picture of all of us standing there. And I'm like, that was the day. And I'm like, I should have thought to just bring that picture down to be like, it was this one.
With him up on the rock. You're thinking about
we were all up there on those ledges on the rocks.
Yeah. Yeah. It was coming up to the flowering ceremony. We were doing the Yanantan things where you, anyway, yeah, I remember the day.
And, you know, I was still a little bit skeptical when I closed doing the work, the other eye open watching. And so got to see that. Actually, yeah, it was up on these ledges.
Yep, there you go.
And, you know, standing up around, and everybody was supposed to be in the circle. And I'm just like, if I scooch 4 inches this way, be down below. You want me to close my eyes? Okay. But that was it was a really good day. Now back to Waskar. So you briefly mentioned about some soul retrieval. We don't want to get too far into that, but he is the being that kind of keeps those little fragmented pieces safe.
Or he knows where they're at. You should. Pachamama keeps them safe, but if you had to go find a soul piece, he's your dude to kind of direct you where to go when you're going to look for it. Mm-hmm. On a soul retrieval note, there's many different ways to do soul retrieval in this tradition. There's like 2 main ways. There's one way where you kind of know what it is, what happened, where you're looking for, and that's a really easy way. And then there's one where you don't know and you kind of got to go fishing for it, and that's where you have Waskar. And then there's something really elaborate that you could do a soul retrieval despacho, where so if there's like for super major traumas and things, there might be like a whole process that you would do with a big offering, which is kind of like taking that second thing, finding the soul piece with Waskar, and then doing a huge payment to the earth in gratitude for keeping that soul piece safe. So you'd be doing like the despacho, because the idea is like those beings of the underworld, they get really protective over these things. And they're like, this is the soul piece that you threw away and you didn't want. We took care of it all this time. And we want to be honored for all of our work, that type of thing. And then you would have like the payment to honor like the work that the earth did and that type of thing to bring back the soul piece. So depending on the nature of how big the soul loss is, those are the 3 things you would learn as part of the apprenticeship eventually, that you would be able to do for stuff like that.
Yeah. And I remember Zane talking about how for some people, maybe when they're going for these soul pieces, how maybe those guardians can seem very big and scary. And it really just kind of comes down to like proving just how ready are you to take that piece back and work through it. So if you're immediately afraid to go grab that, you're not ready. If you're not at a point where you can be like, you know what, that's mine. I'm going to do the work, and that work being like, taking this piece back, acknowledging that like, yeah, it's big and scary. Because ultimately that guardian of big and scary is kind of representing the trauma that happened to make that piece shatter in the first place. I don't know if he ever related it that way, but that's how it always came to me. So
makes sense.
And in a way, it's almost like, depending on how you're going about it, it's like if you consider it almost like court, right? Like you got to go win back custody of your piece, your kid, and like, I'm ready, and it's the court, and here we go. Or you can treat it almost like a D&D side quest. Like, I'm on my way. It's fun. You're going to run into some bumps, but you know what? I'm ready to go do this. It's more, fun, joyful, because you're getting it back versus like, okay, we're going to go do the court. We're going to go through the proceedings. We're going to, prove our case. So, and that's really more up to the client. If you're doing the soul retrieval piece for the client, like, how are they viewing it? And if they're more on the court side, there's going to be some more work and some more actions and probably more pieces that are going to have to be retrieved later, versus like D&D, we're all having fun, and your bard's off singing some freaking where looking for your piece, and you got your paladin out. Then you're probably going to gather all of those up more. That job's going to be done in a smoother, easier space, because everybody's kind of on the same page, looking and ready to bring that back. I mean, at least how it resonates for me and when I've done it, versus I don't know about you, Hank. And I'm sure
think that resonates well.
Just relate this to D&D.
Well, and the part one is like getting the soul, well, location, getting the soul piece, but then the other part is integration. And that's really determinant of if the work has been done to integrate that soul part. If there's healing work to be done around the trauma, if there's like a whole bunch of issues, like I hate my parents because this happened under their watch and whatever, like there, you may not be able to integrate something if there's like that kind of work. And I think that reflects to your point, like if it looks like it's big and scary and it's just like unfathomable that I can approach this, how this looks, it's just a sign that I really need to sit with myself a bit more and really ask, what do I need to do before we go to get the soul piece to really to integrate it. I did hear Zane make one reference to soul loss that recently that I really liked, and he related it more because like if you think of the idea that all of creation is within you, you are the earth is you, like there's the soul piece is within you. Mm-hmm. But it's like an app on the phone. This app does a certain thing. And when you have the soul loss, the app goes offline. So you're sitting there, you're pushing the button to make it do its thing. And it's just like, meh. And a soul retrieval is akin to like going and fixing the programming code so the app works again. And I really like that analogy because it's, you're always a whole soul. It's just parts of you might be fractionated perceptually out of time space, and then they just don't work the way they're supposed to work.
So you have to defrag yourself.
You got to defrag yourself, right?
When was the last time you defragged and cleaned up your files?
Yeah, and you got to download the update. That's how you integrate it, right? So to bring the app online, man, there's an update because that soul piece, that part of you, stopped aging when that trauma happened. And so if you were 5 when this trauma happened, and like that soul part is like still 5 years old, and that's why some people who have traumas, they might have an emotional flashback. They act like a 5-year-old. Well, they are a 5-year-old. I can speak from personal experience. And so you have to like fast track the aging of that soul in a way to integrate them so that is minimized, and you don't always have a 5-year-old instance when you have that kind of thing going on.
Now, have you had a client who did not know what caused the event for the soul?
Yeah, that could be pre-verbal. Like one of the things that there's a theory now that we have a lot of complex post-traumatic stress because of the whole phase of people letting their children just cry it out. It's created like abandonment wounds, and you might not remember being wounded in that way by your parents just letting you sit there and cry it out, but that's like a common theory currently. And so for things like that, I might use like to have a client tell a story around it, make something up around it, or there's different ways that you can work with that depending on the situation. But that is often that the original wound or imprint is pre-verbal, and you're never necessarily going to get to a memory of it, and you may have to give it a different context.
Right. Well, especially because for most humans, like, you can only go so far back in childhood. Most don't remember being born. Most don't remember learning to crawl and things of that nature. So if something traumatic happened in that age, you may not remember it or be able to verbalize what it was that you felt at that time because you don't remember, even though something in here is still triggered by what and why. I personally have not had anybody that I worked with, but then again, I don't do a whole lot of work with the public. Mine is usually military related. Because let's face it, I'm usually too busy running the store, doing other things and people are like, how do I get with a healing session with you? And I'm like, have the things aligned just right? Where is Saturn sitting in your chart right now? Oh, that's right. I don't buy into astrology. It's funny, one tomorrow is an astrology conversation.
Is it? Tomorrow you have one?
Yeah, but Emily's doing it.
Okay.
I am of the mind that your personal, like growing up, your childhood, those around you in those development years are going to have so much more impact than where the planets are of why your life is going the way it is. So psychology versus astrology.
Well, I think both have a lot of merit. My own opinion on astrology is it's more like puppeteers pulling on strings. You don't have to go, the more conscious you are, the less astrology matters, but it doesn't not matter. And even if it's all gobbledygook, there's so much morphic field around it at this point that even the collective consciousness of belief would have an impact, even if the planets do shit.
And the fact that
So
the planets are constantly moving and like the moon's moving away from us and there's other sign, then I'm just like, make that work. Make that fit now. But anyway, we're off topic of Waskar again. You guys feel free to ask questions. If you have questions about soul loss, soul retrieval, if you've never even heard of it, do you need it explained? Examples of, a soul loss could just be a car accident, like that oh crap moment right before a car accident hits. Serving in the military over in war, that whole thing right there. Never mind all the individual things that could happen.
It's something almost everyone can relate to. Zane said that COVID was a global soul loss that we're still recovering from. It was a global interrupt that really shook a lot of people and created a lot of fear, and everybody was affected by that to some degree. And he looks at COVID as a global version of a soul loss.
Could be. Now, how do you do a whole global soul retrieval?
I think that's going to be covered in the next class. Now, that would be a very interesting thing to ask him, and maybe that could be a specific live stream that we have that we can talk about that. Like, how can we all do our part in healing that? And it's all relevant because COVID. I have an acronym for COVID for those who haven't heard it: creating opportunities via intuiting divinity. Because COVID was a big interrupt. Everybody got thrown out of their normal routine. They just got to sit around, me, myself, and my soul. And that's when there was a huge surge of awakening, and people came out to Goddess Elite and other metaphysical places in droves. Like they just awakened to the fact that there's something. Don't know what it is, but I'm looking now. And it really was inspiring to see that happen. But then there was also a lot of wounding and trauma around it. So it had a polarizing effect, you might say.
Mm-hmm. Though I think in a way, if you take the whole physical illness part of it, the fact that so many people were kind of forced to sit in the quiet with themselves, they could no longer avoid uncomfortable situations of like, I'm not going to think about this, I'm going to throw myself into work. The fact that they could not do that anymore. I think a lot of people came out better because they were trying eventually, if they embrace it and be like, okay, it's time to finally deal with this, because they couldn't run off to work. They couldn't immediately get done with work and then go out with friends or go do whatever. Like they were forced to. So if they embrace that, then, I would like to think so many people are in a better position because they finally dealt with that. Hopefully, that opportunity was there. Because I will admit, as a business owner, that freaking sucked. Just kept trying to be like, okay, there's gonna be better after this. There's going to be better. We're just gonna keep hoping there's gonna be better, and trying to stay in that without falling into the heaviness of the worry of the oh shit, oh no, what's gonna happen? Blah blah blah. And then because so many people were like, yeah, what else is there? And coming into the store, the new people, the new questions, the whole like, this probably sounds dumb, but, and I'm like, nope. Do you see where you are? Like that's not a dumb question. It might be the 30th time we've heard that question today, but guess what? You are not alone, because you are the 30th person today alone to ask that. And safe space to come ask those questions and to come get the answers. And if I don't immediately know it, I know people who I can be like, hey, you go ask Hank on Thursday about what sound frequency does this, because that makes noise and that is not my thing. That is his thing. And just correcting people. So, yes, the whole physical ailment, many people died. And, that part, absolutely horrid. Those that were doing the work at home, while kind of like, well, what's this opportunity going to bring, while I'm hoping not to get sick, hoping that none of my friends and family are getting sick and passing away. Like, what else can I do? Oh, gee, I'm going to finally deal with this issue. And there were things that we're like, oh shit, I thought I was done with that. Guess not. Let's go deeper into that while I'm sitting around. passing another day away because, in our state, we were locked down. I don't know if we were one of the ones locked down the longest, but it was a while. We were longer than other states, but not as long as a couple others.
Yeah. And compared to some other countries, we were minimally locked down. Like in Germany, you could even get like fined by being out on the street and stuff like that. It was really, really strict. The other thing, besides people coming out to the stores that I saw, like when I would go for a walk or a hike, there, like when I used to go, like it would be maybe you might see somebody on the trail, and then all of a sudden you would see like dozens and dozens of people where you might have saw one before, and so people were getting out to nature too. And that, of course, when you start getting back into nature, there's this balancing effect that happens, even if you have no shamanic training whatsoever. If you go for regular hikes in nature and are exposed to rivers and waterfalls and trees and all these things, there's a natural health benefit that has been shown that you get. So people are getting back into sync with nature, I think, too, and getting their rhythms synced up. And there's just so much happening that was a good thing as a result of COVID, aside from the horrid things that you had mentioned.
So, hey, Divine says, my time in the military created a different side person in me. She is one that can do things that the world would consider evil. I know she's there, but she is softened, but she is always there. Is that a form of soul splitting? I don't think.
Really good question.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't feel like it would be a form of splitting necessarily, because she's there, you're owning it. It's not like it's this fractured piece that is lost and gone. Like there's not a part of you missing. It's more of an integration. And the fact that you know and you honor is better than completely shutting down and like pushing away and like, nope, that happened and it no longer will, or that complete denial of nope and never. If that would cause more of a soul split or loss by completely trying to sever and act like it never existed. And while I was reading your question, I was trying to remember the name. I think I still have a copy of the store of this book where it was talking about working with the shadow aspects of men and women who have served in the military, especially in the war, and the traumas that they come back with and that PTSD. And it's like their brain is permanently rewired now because of the adrenaline and everything that they're going through. It is permanently rewired. So it's like this new person has been created, and learning and helping them to work and embrace who they are now, and understanding that they're not going to go back, and how important it is for family members and loved ones to be like, yes, you're not the same person before you deployed, and understanding that that person will never be exactly the same again. And you can't put the pressure on that military member to go back to the way they were, because that would be denying everything that they've ever been through or what they suffered. Forcing that is what would be more of a, like, trying to sever that piece of them and send it off and rip it away. So I would say it's an integration. It sounds like you have a pretty good integration, because you understand, you honor, and you're not trying to shove it in this little box and act like she doesn't exist for you.
Yeah. And I would say that we all have within us seeds of potential. And if you're in the military, one seed of potential that you have to germinate and grow is the ability to be that warrior and to do the things that fortunately a lot of us never have to do. While you're growing that seed of potential, some of the things that you do that might be contrary to how you're taught, or right and wrong and bad and all that, that could create a soul fragment. But the actual ability to do it, I would look at as a soul empowerment. And like Melissa was saying, like, you're honoring that. So it's just bringing one of those apps online that can do a certain thing and it has a certain power. And very fortunate, you don't have to use it very often in like the regular world. But if there's anything that while you're using that power created a morality issue, that could possibly be an actual soul fragment. But I would look at it as separate from the empowerment part. The empowerment part could cause another part that would need healing, but they're two different things.
If there is more going on than your question that you want to send messages over in private, please feel free. That is the focus of basic training, to train you to be able to do the things we normally would. Yeah. So like a good example, so, in the military, even when you're in the hospital, right, you're still just your last name. rank and last name right. So I remember like going and visiting a loved one in the hospital up on the mental ward, psych ward. And, you know, all the doors had the big dry erase thing and names, you know, just name, last name. But remember this young man, and he probably was no more than 27 at most. Still walking up and down the hallway, hand still cupping a gun that he did not have, still on patrol up and down this hallway. Sometimes he would go in that room. He might be in there no more than 45 seconds, come right back out, pacing that hallway. And every time he came by, like I would just try and take a little bit of that heaviness. And I'm like, he is still locked back in the desert. He is still mentally there. Like he is so lost. He is a huge soul shatter. And so just anytime he would go by, I would just try to take some of that heaviness and that heavy thing that's like keeping him there. Just trying to take that off. Then there were some others that would kind of walk up and down, be it anxiety or, you know, they weren't quite locked back in a past event. And I would notice that a lot of them would kind of slow down and walk a little slower as they would go past me. And I'm like, they're picking up something and they're not sure what's going on. And that's quite all right. Because every time they come by, we're just kind of sweeping some of that off. And later on, I do have a very good nurse friend who works up there. And every now and then I'm like, hey, you're not allowed to tell me, I'm sure, but is he still there? And, you know, I get an answer either way. But that young man, last I heard, is still there. And he is still locked away in this event that happened and has not come back. So he is a unfortunate prime example of a huge, like, soul loss, soul shatter, because whatever happened, part of his mind went, nope, and just vacated. It's been a while since I've had updates about him. I've never met him other than him pacing the hallway, but I'm like, damn it, this young man, like, he deserves better than this. And this is what, you know, he's experiencing. Do I know that, like, this is what he's meant to do? Yep. Does it still suck as somebody outside watching? Absolutely. I'm on a tangent, so let's come back.
That's okay.
I resonate with the military conversation. Thank you. My little tangents. It's me on the tangent this time. So Divine, I think, you know, unless there's more that you're not sharing publicly, and that's absolutely okay. You don't have to put it out here on this public forum. But if it's just knowing that there's that side of you that you have developed, and that, you know, if something erupted in the world, that, like, if the people closest to you to be like, we need to go to her because she knows what to do and she's not afraid to do it, I say that's a pretty good thing. If it was causing disruption in your life to where you're having trouble going out in the world because maybe you're seeing enemies everywhere that you go, if you're disassociating while you're at work, if, you know, then that would be like, hey, there's more of a problem here, and there could be, you know, some soul loss because part of you is still looking for something that happened that isn't necessarily going on right now.
While you were talking, one thing I thought relevant to bring up is how when someone would go by you, you were just pulling off a little bit of heaviness. This is, in a way, like, it's all about progress, not perfection. And you just need to want to heal more than you don't. They call that the law of 51%. And don't feel that you have to, like, in a short period of time, get back to being whole. It's about the progress and the journey. And, you know, I think some people, they want that instant, I'm back to 100%, like, myself. Like, these wounds all have medicine, and it's about, like, progressing through it. It's not about flipping a switch and all of a sudden being, I'm just done. It's like about the journey. So, like, I just thought it's relevant to mention, like, all that little heaviness that you were pulling, all that was such huge healings, really. And it's about that, like, just even if it's a little bit, by a little bit, you just stay the course and you work on yourself and you do the healing work, and progress, not perfection.
Right. Because for the most part, right, some of these wounds take time to develop, so they're going to take time to heal.
Yeah.
So, don't put the pressure so much on yourself to, like, why aren't I healed yet? I've been doing, this for so many weeks. Like, why am I not perfect? Well, because it took that long to create that wound. So,
Well, and the wound is part of you. And part of those woundings is not like I have huge woundings around grief. I had a lot of childhood stuff. I'm never going to like make that not be my history. But what I have learned is how to navigate those waters more gracefully when things come up for me. And that was part of the healing process. It's not about like making the imprint never have having to occur. It's about learning to navigate the imprint and the medicine that that has for you and how you can then help your fellow travelers because we're all walking each other home here. So all those traumas and things, imprints is really assets for you to offer pearls of wisdom or hope and things to people around you. Being of service, even if you're not a healer, you can be a service for those words of inspiration to that clerk that's ringing out your groceries because you just happen to have the right thing to say. You know,
mhm.
it's a lot of that kind of thing. So honoring the past, not trying to get rid of the past, and the medicine it has, not the trauma that it has.
Right. Hey, Sapphire. Which is why, and it's kind of like I can see the cover of the book, but I can't see the title on the cover in the mind's eye. I'm like, what is that book? But it was specifically like how to work with the military men and women who have
Um,
had these things, and kind of like what you said, like it is a part of them now. So here's how you're going to help support them and help them get through their day-to-day civilian life now. Um, and it's bugging me. So one of the first things I'm going to end up doing when I get to the store here in like an hour or so is like, where is this book? And here it is. um, and I want to say way back in the wee beginnings of Sandy and I doing book talks and book reviews. So probably a good year now. Like that was one of the first ones I went over. Because I'm like, hey, anybody with men and women serving in the family or, just loved ones in general, like take a peek at this book. Um, because it is helping and dealing with them. Um, but Waskar Inka, I mean, he's going to be the helper to help
yep.
do any of these workings. And if it's something that you're like, you know what, I just want to get in and learn how to do some soul retrieval and help and do this thing, like he's going to be one of the main ones that you work with in this
Yep.
tradition for that.
Yes.
So he's a pretty fun guy. He's not like the main guy, but unless you're going to do
Well, I
a
mean, who's going to be the main guy?
so, yeah, like I don't know. Now that I said that, watch somebody in like 2 years be like, he's my main guy.
It's really interesting because in the tradition, 99% of what you're dealing with is nature spirits. It's very rare to, I mean, you might have guides and like your Yanapak and things like that, but like actual icons from the thing, it's really rare. Like you do have Waskar Inka at the Quarterito Festival. If you have like a vision of something you want to do in life, like you see a vision of Christ, that's a thing that shows you that it's going to come to fruition. So they do have a little bit, but for the most part, you're developing relationships with nature spirits and
Mhm.
and mountains, or well, those nature spirits and things like that. And
Yeah.
then the other Incas have become a concept, like Pachacuti. That was an Inca, but it's more of a concept, world turned upside down. And so some of the Incas that are famous or whatnot, they have become like concepts over people in a way, if that makes sense. I have to ask Zane his theory about that or thinking of that. That's just something I'm kind of just talking off the cuff about what his thoughts would be because there's like a lot of stories and things, but in terms of actually using it in the tradition, there's not that many that you go to.
Mm-hmm. Um, there was a part in, was it the first second year, where Koichi, the rainbow snake, kept like hanging around real heavily and kept getting like images of it winding up my left arm and like infusing in, and like this thought of like a tattoo. And I'm like, I am not tattooing this. No. First of all, I'm not sure my skin can handle the tattoo. Second, that's rainbow color. Do I look rainbow? I do not. So we're not doing this. Like,
Rainbows would suit you, just so you know.
no, energetically fine. We're not doing a rainbow tattoo serpent like
Uh-huh.
up my arm and across. We don't do rainbows here. um, but it's still, he's still a piece that when I'm working in with my mesa, like that's one of the ones that will kind of like come alive and start working even before I get to that center of the mesa, just, even call on it. But, and I'm like, all right, buddy, we're still friends. We're still friends. Hi, friend. We still ain't doing a tattoo, but hi, friend. I don't know. Maybe if I get better at my crocheting crochet, we'll make a little snake. But
maybe I look forward to that.
I got to get a scarf straight first. So,
well, that kind of is a good segue to circle back to the beginning when we were talking about the tradition, how it is really about developing your unique voice. You are the rainbow serpent, and they say that it is the serpent with the feet of a puma, the wings of a hummingbird, and the antlers of the ant. And it's you balancing all these things in the shadow work that allow you to be expressing your authenticity to the highest octave possible in this world. And you're becoming, or are, that rainbow serpent.
A black and gray rainbow. Absolutely.
Black and gray. Yeah, for you.
Shades of black and gray.
That could be another book, maybe.
I am the goth rainbow. Ask questions, guys. Now we're rambling.
That would be her book, 7 Shades of Gray, just talking about how her rainbow is all one color.
That's right.
A gradient of drib and drab. I'm kidding.
I hate it when my blacks don't match.
Oh my gosh. I gotta show you this picture, Beam. Anyway, I got this. I will have to show you a picture that I took of myself last night wearing this crazy outfit. I don't think I want to show it on stream. Maybe. We'll see. Oh my gosh. It's like the opposite of you. Maybe I'll show it. I'm half motivated. My God. You ready for it?
Oh, you're going to show it on stream after all?
Yeah. Look at that.
My eyes. Good Lord. I'm allowed for service.
And then I used an AI generator to make a caption. And it says, did
the AI say mine eyes too?
No,
I bet it
says,
did.
I don't always come out of the closet, but when I do, this is me.
Good Lord.
You're welcome.
Okay.
That was all besides the jacket I was wearing, which was a separate piece. I was gonna, like, one of my concepts for Halloween is going to be the man with the yellow hat, and then I got this monkey onesie so someone else in my family can go as Curious George. So like that was the inspiration to a lot of that yellow. Not everything. The boots were just for fun.
Thanks, Devon. That's a lot.
Mismatched black is the worst, and it does stand out actually if you think about it.
Yeah. I've gotten a little more accepting if they're not too far off, but I will stand there, like, depending on the tights, and I'm like, okay, that's close enough. But if it's like old black, and no, we're not doing that. I'm like, oh, look, it's time to order more Nightmare Before Christmas shirts that are in the new black color. Imagine that. They came.
I do occasionally wear black.
Tuesday.
We're definitely not in complementary pair when it comes to our wardrobe. You're all black, and I'm like,
yeah. You open up my closet, and it's just black. The occasional like dark blue, like hang around the house T-shirt type thing, but maybe a gray in there, only because of, like I was wearing a Nightmare Before Christmas, one of the new ones, the Trick or Treaters, Lock, Shock, and Barrel, and the darkest you could get was like a dark gray, and I'm like, fine, only because it's cute. So yeah. Do we have our topic for next week? I don't think we've even.
Well, one, I might not be here next week.
Oh, that's right. That's a Zane thing. He has not.
Yeah. He doesn't always catch us live because he has stuff going on, so he might not be available. So like next week, either we will have no stream, we will have Melissa with someone else, most likely Zane, or we will pre-record something and fake that we're live and lie to you, and something will stream, but we won't really be live. Or fourth option is maybe we won't be leaving yet, and I will be able to do the stream and then we'll leave. So because we have like a 3.5 hour drive down for a camping event in Ohio. So I don't know. We might leave Wednesday night. We might leave Thursday. If we leave Thursday, depends when. We'll see.
Right. So hold that thought about what we're doing next week. If Zane is on, like, that would be great picking his brain. Though he and I have been live before and have talked about the tradition, which I think those are still up on our YouTube. You can always go back and kind of catch those. And those sometimes turn into like 2 hour conversations because it's just fascinating. And then I'm like, oh shit, it's been 2 hours. got to end.
And I tried to watch one once when he was having his spirit. I forget what he was doing. He was having the misa ceremony that he was going to have at the store, and you were talking about that, and then he went off on a tangent, and I was trying to watch just for the hour, and just like, oh my gosh, this is like 90 minutes now. And then so I stopped watching, and then when I went back, you had still talked for another 45 minutes after that. It was like over a 2.5 hour stream almost, I think.
Yeah, because he just has so much information, and it's hard to be like, well, table that. We're not going to learn that right now. We need to turn that off, sir. Like, no, we're going to let the man talk.
Working on a project now, because he did start letting me record them, like just audio recordings in the first apprenticeship, and I have probably, I don't even know how long. I have so much content from the man, but like getting it all transcribed and then editing it to make a library for like the alumni who are also mentors, to give them a library of here's all the places he's talked about this, here's all the places he's talked about this. It's probably going to be a 5-year project, but he gave me permission to start having it transcribed, and like we're at the very beginning things of.
I'm glad that's not me. I'm so glad that's not me doing that.
No, definitely not you. I wouldn't mind looking at your notes and creating some stuff out of that, because you probably took the best notes out of anyone in the class.
I mean, do I have a lot of stuff written down? Yes. Are they disorganized sometimes? Because as we're writing for the day, he would say something and I'm like, oh, that also relates to this from back. And so in the margins notes, over here notes, skip a few pages because I'm going to expand on that later, more of that note. And then going back now, and I'm like, oh shit, I never put any of this in an order because I meant to, but I didn't. So that's why I have like 3 binders full stuff, and I'm like, yeah, about that, I don't want to do that. I'll just flip through for myself and find it, but to organize it, no, that seems very daunting. That would be maybe a day of if like this was tied into the store with employees, that would be like, what employee pissed me off today? Hey, guess what you're gonna do? Go through and organize these. But no, but yeah, at some point going through those comparing notes, I think didn't Maria take some? I'm trying to think if she took.
She did. She took good notes, and then there were some students that like made really good handouts for things. Like Jared, when he was in the program, he made like really top-notch handouts. Like because he would learn everything, and then he would make a handout that would help someone like him get it. And so it was kind of like how you make your own study guides going through school and stuff. He did a good job with those. I don't know if I have too many of them at this point, but we should all compile. We should send an email to everybody. Send us everything you have, and we should compile it into an organized, chaotic mess.
Like, I just picture, maybe because I've been watching Suits, but like the file room of boxes and boxes of like paper. And like, where do you start? I'm glad it's not me.
Well, yeah, you won't be that. But.
And walk out the door and be like, I will come for you if you lose my shit.
Well, that, and then in our old groups where I had like links to all the videos and everything, Facebook decided to get rid of like the way that the file system used to work. And so like the file where all the links were is gone. Because I had a student reach out to me. They're like, where's all the videos? And I'm like, oh no.
Thanks.
They're gone. Well, no, the videos exist, but the links to everything, and I have to go through literally 400 videos to figure out which video should be in which group. And I'm not really motivated to do that, nor do I have the time right now, but I will get to it. There's a lot of content. Yes. Students.
Mary Lee's got notes too. I have 7 copies.
Yep. Yes. Very good. Mary Lee has been in it since the very beginning. Like she's taken, I think, everything Zane has done, including deep dives. And it's a lot. Because like even you had the apprenticeship where we learned one soul retrieval, but then he did like a soul retrieval deep dive series, and there's like 7 classes with 7 different deep dives and soul retrieval, destiny retrieval, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like there's so much. Mm-hmm. There's so much to it. And asking one question, one random question in a group changes the whole class. The first year we had question after question after question. We had to add a whole weekend just to still do the stuff planned. And then in the next group, it was like crickets. Like no one asked anything, and we're ending early. I'm like, who are these people?
Like, why do you have questions? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Like the questions really make the class. Like your willingness to ask a question shifts everything, because that also is a representation of what you as a student are willing to receive. No question. Okay, I'm done teaching.
I think though in that second year, there were more of us who had either were repeating or who people who were trained in other healing techniques. So they had a better basic understanding of some things. So some of those questions weren't needed because they're like, oh,
Sure.
I know how to relate that. I already can extrapolate. I can do this. So I think that was the difference, because I remember sitting back thinking after the second weekend coming in for the third of like, why is nobody asking? And then I'm like, oh, it's because we have Jared, we have Maria, we have Mary, and I'm like, repeat, trained in so many other things and does excellent work on their own, over here I'm like, oh, well, that's why.
Yeah.
Like they don't need to ask some of these basic things, which is okay to ask, but I'm like, okay, we just have a different understanding in the room for this. So, which is why those notes from other people would be great, because what do they extrapolate off of into?
Good question. And I was just having an inspiration. If I am here for the stream next week, maybe we'll talk on Navis, the energy system for this tradition. That might be a good one. And then that could lead into Chumpy, a conversation on the Chumpy work.
Chumpy, so mine that never come out of the case because I hardly ever use them.
There's some more modern day ways to use them that is not as intense or needing to build up. So the Chumpy stones, for people who don't know, are the originally 5 stones that correlate to energy centers. And that's how I found the tradition, because somebody gifted me a set. I'm like, what do you do with them? And they're like, I don't know. And then I Googled and I found Zane. I'm like, yay. So that's kind of like how I found the tradition in a nutshell. But that would be a good segue. We can do Nawis, we could do Chalpi work, and then we can start maybe a class or a stream on shadow work and that type of thing, or alchemy of Pucha, or however you want to look at it.
So long story short, you all are here listening to us ramble because years ago somebody gave Zane rocks, or gave Hank rocks.
Yes, that is the
exactly why we're all here today.
Yes, we're here because someone gave me rocks. Which reminds me, there was this great story. Zane was like, somebody asked him, so you do all this stuff. They're like, are you certified? And Zane's like, I have a bag of rocks, and like a bundle of rocks, I think he actually said, because there is no regulating body for this type of work. Mm-hmm. He was the dean of shamanic studies briefly, but he couldn't do it ethically, because he's like, you're trying to certify people in something that is uncertifiable.
Well, I'm still waiting from Zane. So maybe if nothing else, we'll have the conversation. You need something to do. Maybe you should come to Ohio, start organizing some notes. It'd be great to meet you.
Where is Divine? Do you know where she's at? Is she close? Could she drive here?
She's on the Eastern. I don't feel, if she wants to say where she is, done. Yay. If she wants to say where she is, but no,
drive on over.
Right.
Drive on over.
I will find you a place to stay.
Yeah.
Hey, what else do we need? We got wine. I will find wine. What do you need? I've got plenty of paper, pens. I got all the machines, the copy stuffs. Right, the whole government thing.
It's so bad. The last time this happened, they actually downgraded the United States credit rating, and then it affected our interest rate ability to borrow. So like, it actually has a huge effect. There's all this dramatics and things of it playing out. It always ends up getting extended, but it really does some damage to a lot of things. So a little prayer that goes through with ease for everyone, because it is just a lot of political moves.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate. So many people suffer because of it, and it's not cool. Not cool.
All right, guys. Well, it's a little after 11. Got to get moving because I got to get up to the store. And so keep an eye out. Not sure what's happening next Thursday. Hopefully Zane will be able to join. And so it could still be live, me, Zane, Hank. We'll see what happens. But thanks for joining. If you have any questions that come up after this and like your little mind comes up and it keeps thinking, feel free to email, message, whisper, however you want to get to us. And we'll talk about it on the next live, be it next Thursday or the Thursday after. Any parting words of wisdom, Hank?
No, I have no parting words of wisdom, though I'm at the store usually on Thursdays. If you want virtual or Zoom or virtual or in-person sessions, I'm at Goddess Elite, or you can find me elsewhere if you need to. That is it. All right. Good night, everyone. Good night, everyone. Good day, everyone. Or good night if you're watching on a replay. Bye.
It's all that yellow affecting your mind.
Yeah, maybe. Bye.